want to have an honest and real conversation with you if life feels really difficult right now. I mean, there are some dark days that we can go through, and I've experienced that with you, and it's not fun. But even if it feels like God is putting you through a test right now, I'm here to tell you in this video that those tests can become part of your testimony and breakthrough where you have better days ahead, I promise. And so before I get into some of the ways that God can bless you through your tests, let's first talk about the fact that what you're going through right now isn't anything new in history. See, in biblical times, time after time, we've seen God's chosen people go through tests right before their breakthrough. Some examples of this, right? Joseph was thrown into the well by his own brothers, and he also experienced temptation with Potiphar's wife. And even though he had this ugly, messy road to victory and had some really difficult times where God had a season for him of isolation, he still brought him to becoming a king later in his life. Job is another example where even though Job didn't do anything wrong, God still allowed the devil to torment Job. Now, why is this? Because he was actually showing the devil that through Job's faithfulness, despite the tests, that God was going to bless him even more than what he had before, and that this painful experience that Job went through could be used for God's glory. And why? Because it was during that mess and during that suffering that Job stayed near to the Lord and still poured out all of his agony to the Lord instead of turning his back on the Lord. Despite Job's wife even trying to get him to curse God, another test in itself. And the list goes on. And so really what I want to talk about now in this video is, okay, so what you're going through right now has happened so often in history, even in biblical times, but how in fact can God use what you're going through as a test for testimony? Number one, God can use your test to fix your vision. And I'm guilty of this too, because I've been in past relationships as an example where I used to take this approach of dating based on who I'm attracted to and who I have fun spending time with without consulting God first. And my vision was totally wrong. And so he allowed me to have situations where she would cheat, she would walk out. And for so long, it was easy to blame the other person. I mean, that's easy, right? Let's get real. But then God was exposing something in my heart to say, you know what? I'm part of the problem. There's this saying, right? Where you ask, hey, instead of saying why a clown is a clown, ask yourself, why are you going to the circus? So if you're going to the circus, you are part of the problem, right? And so there was some maturity in me and a lack of faith in me and being led by desire rather than conviction that God was using through my messy relationships to fix my vision and draw me back to him. Are you going through something like that? Maybe it has nothing to do with relationships. Maybe it's job loss. Maybe it's a health diagnosis. Maybe it's a family feud. I mean, the list can go on, but maybe you can relate to that. And this is where God gives us free will, but at the same time, he wants us to steward free will in a way that draws us closer to him and can be used for his glory. Because remember, it's so much easier to have a testimony where you can spread the gospel and tell someone, yeah, I went through what you did in that season. And that's where God can use pain in our life as a purpose that we can now use to empathize and share the gospel with others. And so another way that he can use your test is to actually protect you. See, I know in my messy relationships in the past, doors would close on me where I wanted to stay in that situation, but I look back now and I think to myself, God was protecting me. See, Jeremiah 29:11, he talks about how he knows the plan and future he has for us, not to harm us, but to give us a hope. If God just allows you to go wherever your heart's desire is, you can get into a world of hurt. I mean, we've seen this even in the Bible where King Solomon, for example, being led by his desire in the end of the book of Kings and how it led to a destructive path, right? Because even though God has Jesus as our way and the truth and the life to get to heaven through salvation, it doesn't just stop there. He wants us to be in communion with him. He wants us to maintain a relationship with him. It's not just about being saved, but it's also about having a Christ-centered life that's full of his abundance and joy, and one that we can then steward and share with others. But we can't share with others if we have an empty cup. If our life is full of destruction, how are we going to effectively share with others? And so instead of just being protected by God, he also can use what you're going through as a missional work. And so that's the last point I want to get to, where God can use your test as part of your testimony. See, it's not just about you going through hard times, but sometimes your areas where you have the biggest struggle can be your areas that become your biggest impact in sharing the gospel to others, to show how awesome God is, where for someone like you who thought they could never do this, he's working through you to show others his glory. Moses is a good example of this. When he was near the burning bush, he questioned God, right? He said, how are you going to use me to speak, right? Or even me, myself, in this video. I'm highly introverted, and I was always afraid of making a YouTube channel like this. But yet I feel like I'm being convicted and led. But God also used my past as preparation to more effectively share the gospel with you in this video. And so these are just some examples of how your test can be used for your testimony and for better days ahead. And you tell me in the comments below, how do you feel like God is using your difficult season right now? Do you feel like there is an outlook that you can see into the future where things are going to turn around for you? Or do you really feel like you're just struggling and you're stuck? Because I want us to all talk about this as a community in the comments below, and just to be there for each other. And I hope this video was a blessing to you, and you all have an awesome weekend, and God bless.